Hello, fellow rebel capitalists. Hope you're well. Got big news today. Facebook changes its name to Meta, which is frightening to say the least. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you say to yourself, "Oh, George, that doesn't really bother me. I deleted Facebook a long time ago. I don't even use that stupid app or that platform." Now you're not seeing the bigger picture. We're going to dive into that right now. So let's look at this story. I believe we're going to start with, oh, shoot, had it up here. Well, where is our story, Josh? Is this it? That is not it. That's Kathy Wood. Well, I had it up here. Bottom line is we had this. Here you go. CNN. You got this horribly disturbing picture of Zuckerberg, and he's making the big announcement. They're changing their name to Meta, which maybe more appropriately they should change, or he should change his name to Beta. I think Mark Zuckerberg should officially change his name to Beta Male. That would be, I think, maybe an improvement or much more reflective of who he truly is. He needs to come out of the closet beta. We all know it's true, Mark. Just admit it, for heaven's sakes. But this is the new direction for Facebook. And according to CNN Business, Facebook is changing its name as it shifts its focus to the metaverse and confronts wide-ranging scrutiny of all real-world harms from its various platforms. Okay, so now, first of all, CNN has to take a jab at them, always reminding us that they need to censor even more than they already are. They are not doing a good job of censoring. No, 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 no. There are too many people who believe in freedom that actually are still allowed on Facebook. And that is absolutely unacceptable to the authoritarian, which is CNN and the mainstream in the mainstream media. So he said they're not changing the name of Facebook or WhatsApp or Instagram, just their overall country, kind of like Google changed its name to Alphabet, something like that. And if you're asking yourself, well, what on earth is the metaverse? That sounds ridiculous. It sounds like a universe where all the males are consuming far too much soy. If that's your initial thought, you would be wrong. The metaverse is way better than that. It's where we all live in virtual reality and we never have to get out of bed, or we never leave our room, or we never leave the house. All we do is put in our goggles and our very bizarre, weird gloves and then just hop on the computer. And our whole lives are lived virtually. We never have to interact with another human being forever. Wouldn't that be amazing? And it feels a lot like the Matrix. And this is interesting because I had a conversation yesterday with Whitney Webb. And if you don't know who that is, she's absolutely amazing. The interview is going to be out tonight on the George Gammon channel. We can only put half of it on YouTube. The other half is going to have to go on Odyssey because we really talk about reality. And unfortunately, the social media overlords don't approve of that. And therefore, we've got to move it, the back half of it onto Odyssey. So you'll want to check out both of those. But she really went over this in great detail. So I was kind of surprised, or I guess it was coincidental, that Facebook comes out today and actually announces this right after I spoke with Whitney about it yesterday. But this whole move toward the metaverse is rooted in a concept called Malthusianism, if I'm getting that right. It was by a guy named Malthus, I think was his name. And it's this concept, this Malthusian concept. And we're going to get into that in just a moment. And then that really also dovetails into the idea of eugenics. And this dovetails into the idea of climate change. Now, like I always say, I'm not here to debate that. It could be real, fake, man-made, not man-made. You can have your own opinion on that. But what I am very confident of is that it doesn't have anything to do, or the global elite pushing climate change or the climate change agenda has nothing to do with clean air. It has everything to do with them gaining more power and control. So let's kind of back up, because when you start talking about the metaverse and kind of how they're trying to move us into this world that looks a lot like the Matrix, you're kind of like, whoa, time out, time out. That doesn't make any sense. So let's start right from the beginning. We go to Investopedia. Yeah, so the guy's name that came up with this concept, Thomas Malthus. And I don't know if it's Malthusianism, I believe it is. But the key takeaways here, Thomas Malthus was 18th century British philosopher and economist noted for the Malthusian growth model of exponential formula used to project population growth. The theory states that food production will not be able to keep up with growth in human population, resulting in disease, famine, war, and calamity. So, who have we heard talk about this a lot recently, like over the last 2 years? If you answered Bill Gates, you would be correct. He has come out many, many times and said, the world's going to have 9 billion people in, let's say, 20 years. And if we continue, or if we don't increase the rate of food production, we're going to be in big, big trouble. And listen, he may be right or wrong, I don't know, but he has been saying this a lot lately, and this goes right back to this theory, this Malthusian theory. And it's nothing new. I mean, this guy was born in 1766, died in 1834, and we hear this. We've heard this idea repeated throughout the last 150 years or so. And excuse me, it wasn't Bill Gates who first started talking about this, and the people at the World Economic Forum have talked about this, including Klaus Schwab. So, okay, now that we understand Malthusianism, and that is basically that the population is going to continue to grow, but it's going to increase at a rate faster than our ability to produce food. And therefore, either we need to produce more food or we need to have less people. Let's move on here. We go to the World Economic Forum's website. A post. Bill Gates has a warning about population growth. So my point here is not really to say Bill Gates has any malicious intention or anything. You can come to your own conclusions there based on your own research. But what is very safe to say is that Bill Gates believes in this Malthusian concept. And so do many of the people at the World Economic Forum, including Klaus and Bigglesworth. So now let's move over to the next article. And this is from History, and it explains the concept of eugenics. Eugenics is the practice or advocacy of improving the human species by selectively mating people with specific desirable traits, hereditary traits. It aims to reduce human suffering by breeding out disease, disability, and so-called undesirable characteristics from the human population. I mean, for the global elite, I think an undesirable characteristic would be if you value freedom more than you value safety. Let's just think for a moment about what's happening to police departments all over the United States. And it is true that police, like all of us, are flawed human beings, definitely not perfect. But what's happening when the government comes out and says, okay, you have to do, let's keep it YouTube friendly, you have to do X, Y, and Z if you have over 100 employees or if you're a government entity. So there's police officers that don't agree with that. So they're like, no, I'm standing up for freedom. I believe that is unconstitutional. That is against the law. That is the antithesis of what I was hired to do. And I'm going to stand up for what I believe is right. Just like the Patriots did in 1770s and 1780s, right here in the United States. The original patriots, the people that, oh, by the way, were definitely on the right side of history. So let's just say that 20% of the police force falls into that category and they end up quitting. Well, who are you left with? You're left with the 80% that didn't stand up for what they felt was right. Or maybe they believed in that, but you're left with a group of people that were far more submissive. They were more than willing to obey. So, how is that any different? Aren't you just kind of weeding out the people that have so called undesirable characteristics from society at large? See how it's a very, very similar concept. And then you layer that over the Malthusian belief, and well, hey, this works well because at the end of the day, we're on an unsustainable course where we're just going to have too many people and not enough resources. So again, I'm not here to say that the strategy they're encouraging is to reduce the people. It could be to increase the amount of food. I mean, obviously, that's what I think would happen just naturally if you allow the free market to do what it does. I mean, Malthus was predicting this would happen 100 years ago, and there was people in the 1920s that were predicting it would happen in the 50s, and people in the 50s predicted that would happen in the 70s, in the 70s, and the 90s. And sure enough, Bill Gates today is predicting that it's going to happen by the year, I believe, 2050. And magically, something happens. The free market figures out a solution. But I believe that would be the course. So I don't think we really have to worry about it. But let's just assume there are some people out there that think it would be that the best approach is to, let's say, have a better control over demographics. And so you see how if you believe in one thing that, okay, well, it's very likely that you would at least be open to the concepts of eugenics. And if you want even further proof, let's take it down to the very basics of eugenics. It is the belief that there are some people who are just genetically superior to others. They're just smarter than others. And therefore, those people need to make decisions for those. They need to take away the freedoms of all of the imbeciles out there. And I'm using that word specifically because that's the word that was used by the Supreme Court justice who was in charge of announcing the decision, the 1927 decision in Buck versus Bell, where the United States Supreme Court legalized eugenics. He said, we don't want another 3 generations of imbeciles. So this belief in eugenics is really at its core, believing that there are some people that are just flat out superior to other people. Okay. Well, what is central planning? If you're a socialist, if you're a Marxist, and one thing we can say definitively without having to put pieces of the puzzle together or make guesstimations is we know that the people at the World Economic Forum, the global elite, IMF, and a lot of the politicians and the CEOs that are kind of drinking the Klaus Kool-Aid, they're all socialist. They believe in, they think we should have more central planning. I would go so far as to say they're Marxists. Okay, well, what is that belief at its core? It's the exact same thing as eugenics. It's the belief that there's a small group of people that are just so much smarter than everyone else that they should be in control, that all those dumb idiots like you guys watching this video right now, you're too stupid to make your own decisions. You're not competent. And left to your own devices, you're just going to destroy your own life and society around you. So it's up to us, the intelligentsia, the enlightened few, the global elite, to take all the power and control away from you, to take your freedom away and micromanage your life for the greater good. You see how this stuff comes full circle. So, what does this have to do with Facebook and the quote unquote meta or metaverse? Well, let's think about it. If one of the ways that they're going to take control is through this, what I believe, the Trojan horse with climate change, again, it could be very real. It could be a real threat. I'm not saying it's not, but I am saying they're just using it as a Trojan horse. That's kind of my base case. So then what that means is they can encourage people and they can condition people to spend more and more time, a greater and greater percentage of their life on the computer, on the internet, in virtual reality. And pretty soon, if people are conditioned that way from a very young age, it gets to the point where when they're adults, they don't even want to go outside. They have no desire whatsoever to even leave their room. Just like those people were plugged in to the matrix and they just lived their entire lives in a capsule full of some sort of bizarre liquid, right? They never even knew that they were plugged into the matrix. And is it any stretch, although it sounds crazy, but is it a stretch to believe that after the next generation and the next generation and the next generation, if these, we'll call them technocrats and global elite, continue to condition the young people, we know they control the education system. I mean, that goes without saying. So is it a stretch to believe that after generation and generation, maybe 2 or 3 down the road, that the young people are just very, very comfortable completely unplugging from the real world just so they can plug in to the virtual world? And now all of a sudden, the global elite can control that. And then they have everything they want. They can enjoy the real world. They can fly around the whole, they can fly from Europe to United States in their G6 and blow all the fuel they want. They don't have to worry about the climate. They don't have to worry about food. They'll have everything that they want because all those people that they conditioned never leave their house. They never drive a car. They don't consume much of anything because they're just living their entire life plugged into a computer. And this is exactly what I talked to Whitney Webb about. So I'm not saying this is not a prediction. Let me be very, very clear. All I'm doing is I'm going through thought experiments, the same thing that I do to try to figure out the world around us from a standpoint of macroeconomics. You have to throw things up against the wall and see what sticks from a standpoint of continuing to collect facts and then determine what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and always challenge your own belief systems. I think that's absolutely crucial. So I'm not saying that this is true. I'm not saying that this is a prediction. I'm only saying this is a thought experiment. And I am saying that this is something we need to be cognizant of. Because if this is, hopefully it's not their game plan. Hopefully I'm completely wrong about this. But if it is, then you'll be able to make far more sense of what happens in the next 5 years and the next 10 years. And if that's something you don't want to be a part of, then you can take action to set up a plan B today instead of waiting until it's too late. Okay, super chat. The planet can easily sustain many more billions of people as long as people become self-reliant. This is a great point. Yeah, I mean, do we really have a food problem if everyone, had their own farm? And you say, "Oh, there's not enough land." Really? I'd beg to differ. In fact, I just flew from Dallas to Phoenix, and I was I was looking out the window, there's nothing there. So I know the soil might not be right or whatever, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. And you know what this points out is if we do go this direction, and again, hopefully we don't, uh, but if the global elite continue to push us this way, it's going to get to a point where I think people are going to divide themselves into two groups. Very similar to that blog post from that Danish gal on the World Economics Forum's website. Remember the title that I believe was you'll own nothing, you'll have privacy, and life will never be better. Something like that. That was kind of her view of what's going to happen in 2030. I've used that for a lot of whiteboard videos. But you're going to have a group of people that really want that. They want to live their life in a computer. They want to live in virtual reality. They want to be controlled. They want to obey. They believe in authoritarianism. And then you're going to have another group that believe in freedom and don't want anything to do with it. And I think that for that group of people, we're going to have to go back to our roots and start, to a certain degree, providing for ourselves and providing what you need. The food that you need, the energy you need, the shelter you need, and to make sure that you and your kids and your grandkids are focused on reality and not virtual reality. We'll see where it goes. I mean, that was the last question that I had for Whitney in the interview. I said, I mean, I was completely blown away by what she was saying. I think you will be too. But I said, "What are you doing?" I mean, she's got she's got a daughter and one on the way. And I said, "What are you doing to protect yourself? Are you buying Bitcoin, gold, anything like that?" She says, "Not really, because at the end of the day, it's all about food. It's about shelter. It's about real wealth." That's what we talk about on this channel all the time. And it's about freedom, because it doesn't matter what the size of your portfolio is. If you ain't got freedom, you got nothing. So what she's doing is actually buying land out in the country, I believe in Chile, so she can just set up her own place and be as self-sufficient as possible and just see how this plays out. And I know that's not right for everyone. For me, I'd be a disaster. But I think that we need to understand that that could, for the right person, I think that should be something they consider for their plan B strategy. The trees kept voting for the axe. Yeah, because the axe convinced the trees. Yeah, good point. Imran. Imran. I think hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. That's because his handle was made of wood. He was one of them. Turkish proverb. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Make sure you're always standing up for freedom, liberty, free market capitalism. See you on the next video.